following video is unsuitable for younger viewers, and it contains discussions of peril that you may find upsetting. This may not be suitable for those who are afraid of flying. Viewer discretion is strongly advised. Air France is the flag carrier of France, and it's based in Charles de Gaulle Airport in Paris. This flight was their first deadliest crash and resulted in 113 total fatalities, though some of those occurring on the ground. This flight crashed into a hotel. It's Air France Flight 4590, which was Concorde. It is operated by Air France and other major airlines, including those like British Airways. Was this Air France's fault why the crash occurred, or was it Continental Airlines? You're probably wondering, why are they involved when this video is about Air France? Well, let me talk to you about it. Before Air France left the airport, Continental Airlines left, and whilst it was taking off, a part of the aircraft attached. It was a door and it was a metal alloy. It was like a strip, and it fell onto the runway. This posed a threat, but for some reason nobody noticed it, and I don't know why. Air France Flight 4590, the Concorde, started to taxi onto the runway where the wreckage, well not wreckage, but where that slight wreckage was found. And whilst it was taxiing, the tyre blew out. This caused the fuel tank to rupture, causing an explosion. The aircraft reached a point of no return. When you're on an aeroplane, you probably feel like you can tell when you're about to take off. The speed rapidly increases and you're kind of held back in your seat as the aircraft launches into the air. Now that is what the point of no return is. It's when the aircraft has no option but to take off into the air, and that's what happened with Air France. As it was taking off, it began to catch fire. The tyre, the rupture, the tank, everything all coincided with each other, and the pilots lost control. There were voice recordings taken of this incident, which I'm going to read out to you now. Co-pilot said, "Le Bourget, Le Bourget, Le Bourget." Pilot, "Too late, unclear." Control tower, fire service leader. Correction, the Concorde returning to runway 09 in the opposite direction. Pilot, no time, no, unclear. Co-pilot, negative. We're trying Le Bourget for switching sounds. Co-pilot, no, unclear. Fire service leader, can you give me the situation of the Concorde? Two gongs and sound of the switch followed by another switch and sounds likened to objects being moved. Pilot, unclear, sounds like exertion. Pilot, unclear. The aircraft slammed into the left, the wheel began to lose control and it crashed shortly after takeoff, killing 109 people aboard and 4 people in the hotel. It was reported that 4 other people were injured, so 113 lives were lost today. This occurred on the 25th of July 2000. 2 years later, on the 16th, well, almost 2 years later, on the 16th of January 2002, the BEA, which is France's Aviation Investigation Unit, stated that the probable cause was that the pilot error. It was also the Continental flight that they found the strip after the flight crashed, and they also said that the flight reached a point of no return. This was their final report, and in 2005, Continental Airlines would be taken into account and they would be charged with negligence, and they were going to get manslaughter charges. The trial lasted from February to December 2010, and the person who actually owned the Concorde was also going to be charged. However, this was dropped, and someone, it wasn't stated who, sustained a 15-month suspended sentence. Continental Airlines were paying Air France over €1 million and had to pay 70% of compensation to those who lost their lives. This was also being paid by Air France, so they were paying as well as Continental Airlines, and this was all settled in 2012. However, they were found liable. You see, Air France were being questioned and under suspicion on the fact that they and other French regulatories and the person that actually developed the Concorde knew that the crash was inevitable and knew that there were faulty things going on. You see, in the 1970s and 1980s, another board member stated, I think it's called like TSB, they are based in America, and they stated that Air France were being questioned, as well as other airlines, into the practices that they were using these Concordes, and that there were lots of tyre blowouts and fires. British Airways came under significant scrutiny after multiple fires occurred. Also, British Airways stated that Air France could have avoided this tragedy, as one of the captains, John Hutchinson, who was notably been flying Concordes, stated that the fire was enough to get the ball rolling on getting the people out of the plane and getting them evacuated. However, this didn't happen, and this is where we are today, over 25 years later. Air France decided against this and fiercely denied anything and any wrongdoing. So did Oriental Airlines before they were ordered to pay Air France and the families of those who lost their lives. I think that Oriental Airlines is to blame. I feel like they should have checked their plane before they took off, and they should have noticed that. I think they were flying a Douglas plane, but they should have noticed it. Also, Air France should have noticed it while taxiing. They should have felt it. They should have felt the tyres go and noticed the smoke and the fuel and things. So that would have caused the accident never to happen in the first place. As I stated, this is the first biggest, deadliest fatal accident in 2000, and this occurred in Paris and crashed into a hotel in Ingles, killing 109 people and injuring 4 on the ground. Was anything done after this accident? British Airways and Air France stopped using Concordes shortly after, but it was 3 years too late. British Airways, I think, is hypocritical in this. They're trying to keep up a clean slate. They are one of the most safest airlines to fly with, but unfortunately they have to take some responsibility as well, not into the crash, but they could have caused a fatal accident, as they have received multiple tyre blowouts and fires. So they should have been held accountable and stopped using these Concordes when they noticed that there were blowouts as well. So they're also to blame, I think. Air France, I don't think that they're getting off scot-free either. I know that I said that Oriental Airlines is to blame, but Air France knew that this Concorde was trouble. Even though there was maintenance work on it, they should have encapsulated maybe burst resist tyres and things like that. However, this didn't happen, and we're here where we are today. It included people like German football manager, and it also included a board member, many people flying to New York to go on a cruise ship to travel to Ecuador. This never happened, and sadly those people never got to do this. And the German crew, Peter Cruz, I can't even remember the thing, I will get it up for you guys, but they were in charge of getting the flight sorted, but they're not to blame, as they didn't know that this was going to happen. So where are we now 25 years later in aviation and Air France? Sadly, Air France continued to operate with weird, and I mean weird, aircraft, and they were put under scrutiny until 2009, where they lost more lives, even more lives, as they plummeted into the ocean. This was also due to pilot error, and they were also operating an aircraft that had blocked pitot tubes due to icing, and they continued to fly under weird weather conditions. So sadly, no. Even though Air France did make changes to stop using Concorde, I feel like it was quite reluctantly. They still managed to keep up a bad reputation, as Air France managed to get into another fatal accident 9 years later. I'm not saying Air France are completely unsafe as an airline. Back in the day they were, as when they, in their beginnings, a decade into their into their long-standing career. They had many people disappear over oceans, especially near the English Channel. Now, most of it was due to the war, so it wasn't their fault, but most of it carried just crew, and most of it was unknown, and we still don't have some of the bodies and survivors whenever. Well, not survivors. I think there were some survivors, some of them, but most of the bodies are not found. So Air France are definitely safer. In fact, I'm going to give you an example. In the beginning of this year, 2025, they turned around because of the depressurization in the plane. Oxygen masks were deployed and they landed safely. And they did not continue to do this, but they had to anyway because they're being regulated by authorities and aviation standards. So, Air France, are they an unsafe airline? They were back in the day, and I feel like they operated with unsafe practices. But what do you guys think? Do you think this is all Air France's fault? Do you think that this could have been avoided? I definitely think it could have done. I think it should have been. They should have known there was a 5-minute window before travelling. Someone should have noticed that the strip had fallen and stopped the Air France flight. I'm going to end the video here. I'm going to be sharing the voice recordings as well. You can find them in the video also. I really hope that you guys are liking this content. This is something new. I'm visually impaired and I've done the research as I've recently gotten into aviation accidents and incidents. However, I will be doing an Air India video very soon. However, I can't do one yet as there isn't much evidence on how the crash happened. Please leave a like on the video as it helps boost the algorithm. Subscribe, share, and